Welcome to Politics by Faith, the American Renaissance. I'm so excited for this hour together. Thank you so much for being here. One of my goals in life is, in the role I want to play in directing this conservative movement, whatever role I can play, is to focus the conservative movement on the good, the beautiful, and the true. Not just tax policy, not reconciliation bills, not just immigration policy. All good, all important, we're going to do it. But I want to make sure the conservative movement is also focused on things that are deeper and more eternal. And that is the good, the beautiful, and the true. All the rest will then fall into place. I believe in my whole life, we have all been living under these three pseudo-intellectual ideas that have taken a hold of our culture, and I think they've gotten inside of people's minds and souls and hearts. I call it the secular trinity, just because I think that sounds cool. And that is three things. First, who are you to say? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and my truth. When we abandoned the good, the beautiful, and the true, the left replaced it. And whether we abandoned it or they took it, we can argue. But either way, the left replaced it. They replaced it with good? Who are you to say? Beauty? Nah, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Whatever I think is beautiful is, and whatever I think, that's it. Just whatever I think. And truth? No. As Pilate said, what is truth? There's only my truth. And we've gotten to the point where most people in America, intentionally or not, live with this demoralizing worldview. And conservatives need to counter this. Really, first and foremost, need to counter this by championing the good, that's morality, the beautiful, there's objective beauty, and the true. There is truth. Truth exists. Now, I think conservatives are doing a good job with the first and the last, right? So they understand the importance of truth, understand the importance of morality, and that's good. But I think conservatives have the most ground to gain, myself included, to fully understand the importance of beauty. And I don't know if it's sounds lame or sounds like a girl thing, I don't know, but it's super important. And it's manly, it's masculine, and it's Christian, and it's American. I love this line from Jeremy Wayne Tate. He said, modern man is in a terrible predicament. He is helplessly enamored with the beauty of what the old world built. It despises the beliefs that inspired them to build it. No one can look at that picture right there and say that's not beautiful, of course. Let me give you another one. This is a cathedral in Paris. This cathedral here, this next one, was built 800 years ago. Look at that. I mean, like what? Could we even build something like that if we wanted to? Yeah, I'm worried that we've lost the will, but we've lost the skill along the way as well. This is the chapel at King's College in England. This was built in the year 1500. Look at that thing. Who built that? Incredible men. But we don't have to go to Europe. We don't have to go to Europe for this. Right now in America, we build slop. Boring, cheap, replaceable, forgettable. But we didn't used to. My go-to example is the old Boston City Hall. Look at this. Look at this beautiful building. Built in 1865. Praise God, it's still standing. But it's not the City Hall anymore. That building right there, that's a stunner. No one can look at that and say that you don't like. That's a beautiful building. You would walk by that and stop. You would take a picture in front of it with that in the background. That was built by people who cared, by people who knew they were building for a country that mattered and for people they loved. Here's the current Boston City Hall. No one's taken a picture in front of that. The people who built that said, look at that open space. That's very pro-democracy. It's pro-people, right? It'll invite people to congregate, but of course it doesn't. In reality, it repels people. And it's true because the people who built that and all that stuff like that, they actually hate people. They hate beauty. They hate God, is the truth of it. You know, my podcast, we talk a lot about this. I have a podcast called Politics by Faith, and we talk about the news of the day and the big story of the day, and then we run it through a biblical filter and talk about the biblical truth. And there's nothing new under the sun, so all this stuff is actually in the Bible. And one of the themes of this podcast is that God is a God of order. And all ugliness and chaos in the name of art and like that Boston City Hall that we have today. If you question that, you're like, that's ugly. They come back, well, who are you to say? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And what even is truth? But we know it. We know it deep down. And this has been true for a while now, and all across our country. Do a search on your computer today. Do a search. Old, and then your town, high school. So like the original high school in your town. And see what it looked like. See what it looked like. I did this for San Diego when I lived there. That's the old San Diego high school. Look at that thing. Unbelievable. They tore it down. They replaced it with this. Do it for your town. You'll see the difference. Same with schools, hospitals. Look up old hospital, current hospital, and the name of your town. Tucker Carlson made the point that you judge a society by its fruit. Jesus said a similar thing, right? Matthew 7:15, every good tree bears fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree can't bear good fruit. That's about going to heaven, but it's literally true too, right? We do it with trees. If someone says this is an apple tree, and you plant it, and then it produces an orange, they were wrong. So let's look at the fruit of what the progressive worldview has given us. The fruit in the world of art and architecture and music and pop culture, it is ugly. Noble ideologies produce beauty. Poisonous ideologies produce ugliness. We are surrounded by ugliness because we have been led by poisonous ideologies. And I will know that we have properly ushered in a conservative revolution and a conservative movement in this country, an American Renaissance. I will know when that happens, when we again start building beautiful buildings and beautiful art and beautiful music. We've lived under a poisonous ideology for a long time, and it's produced nothing but ugliness around us. My concern is we become numb to it. And then when someone like me comes along and says, hey, like, that's really ugly, we should build beautiful things, it's like, you're a pansy or something. I don't know what like the conservative, old school conservative reaction to this conversation would be, but it matters. And I'll tell you, when you realize how ugly everything is around us, from how we build our houses to what our skyscrapers look like, once you see it, you'll get really angry. And I'm sorry about that. Like, my wife has to hear about this all the time when we drive everywhere. It's like, man, what were they doing? Why would they do that? It's so ugly. But you got to get angry in order to make the change that we see. Beauty is objectively true. It's true. You don't have to be Japanese to know that this pagoda in Japan is beautiful. Right? It's like, look at that. Like, well, that's unbelievable. Like, it's because it matches nature. It's made with the materials that are around it. It's culturally unique to Japan, as opposed to the buildings they build today, which are like glass and steel skyscrapers that could be anywhere. That could be in Qatar. It could be in Saudi Arabia. It could be in England. It could be anywhere in America. It could be anywhere. You don't even know. You know that's Japan. It's symmetrical. It's proportioned right. It's beautiful. Tucker did an interview with Russell Brand, and Russell Brand made the point that the buildings we used to build were once, especially the government buildings, were an expression of a contract between the people and their government and an expression of their relationship. And that makes sense because ugly buildings today are built by people who hate God and hate their people. And that's where we're living right now, and I don't want to keep doing that. These people who have built these buildings, they did it to demoralize you. That's what it is. And even just look at the last 10 years, it's come to quite a head. Where you have people tearing down beautiful statues. I could point to many examples. I'm going to point to this one right here, the statue of Teddy Roosevelt outside the New York City Natural History Museum. That's a beautiful sculpture, obviously. They took it down. And in Times Square, they just put up this. This is a 12-foot tall statue of an obese black woman. Not even a particular obese black woman, like one who did something, just generic obese black woman. These are made by people who hate this country, and they've removed all beauty and goodness and truth from our society, and they've replaced it with ugliness for ugliness' sake. And you know why they put that statue up there? They put that statue there to humiliate you. It's to humiliate you. Because what are you going to do? I'm going to put this thing in Times Square, and what are you going to do about it? demoralizing and humiliating. Just like all propaganda, that's what the point of propaganda is. The point of propaganda is to humiliate you, right? If they can lie to you and you go along with it, like transgenderism is like the most obvious example, right? If they can convince you or tell you, they don't convince people. If they tell you that a man can become a woman and you go with that, then there's nothing they can't tell you. But like they own you. And if they can demoralize your soul so much to make these ugly things that we become numb to it, then they can feed you uglier and uglier ideas as well. We need an awakening. We need an awakening in this country and a renaissance of the good, the true, and the beautiful. And as conservatives, we need to take this space back and demand beautiful things again. And ideally, and this is one of my missions as a father of 4 children, is to raise a generation to not only have the will, but also the skill to build beautiful things again. I want to go to Justin Shubow, who has been fighting for this for a long time now. He's the president of the National Civic Art Society. Justin, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Why does all this matter? Why does beauty matter? What's the point? Who cares? Let's just throw up a building and be done with it already.
Well, I mean, this is a deep philosophical question, and there are many different kinds of beauty: natural beauty, man-made beauty. And I think what we're talking about today is man-made beauty. What does our environment look like? What do our buildings look like? When we go walk down the street, do we feel uplifted, inspired? Do we feel like this is a world that is designed for beings like us? Beauty can boost our mood. It can do so many things for us. And unfortunately, there's been a falling away in beauty in a lot of architecture, especially in our federal buildings. But it is absolutely something that we need to care about. I mean, as the philosophers used to say, what are the 3 highest values? The true, the beautiful, and the good. It is imperative that we build beautiful things.
Maybe we can do a rough timeline of this. We played some, in the first segment, we played some, showed some pictures of things that we built 1,000 years ago that were stunningly beautiful. And they're still beautiful today. And it doesn't matter where you're from, you look at it, it's objectively beautiful. We all know that. And not only the big giant things we built, but even the smaller, the towns, the neighborhoods that we built used to be, and there was an eye on beauty. When did we lose that in America? Let's start there. When did that fall away and why?
Well, I would say that prior to World War II, buildings in America, they might not all be beautiful, but they were at least pleasing. They were not ugly. They were not demoralizing. But after World War II, there was a huge change that occurred in large part due to modernist architects who had left Europe for the United States. They established themselves at Harvard's Graduate School of Design, and from there, this plague of modernism spread throughout the country. Now you have to understand, well, what is modernism? It represented a complete break with the historic architecture. It eliminated all ornament. It eliminated many kinds of visual things that we found beautiful, and replaced it with minimalism, with functionalism, with the ethos of the machine, the ethos of mass production. And after that, we started getting this drab uniformity across many of our cities. And this also infected our federal buildings. As I was saying, I mean, we ultimately got a style of architecture called brutalism, which is aptly named. It's a style made up of raw concrete, extreme repetition of modular pieces, deep set buildings that actually are threatening or could even be sinister at their worst. And they were an attempt to be quote unquote truthful, in the sense of not just being truthful to the materials, but showing the harshness of life. It was a kind of anti-beauty.
Okay, Okay, so my side question of that, and my mom and I always joked that whenever we toured colleges, you could always tell just driving through what the art and architecture building was, because it was always the ugliest building on campus. So it's one thing for this movement to enter into Harvard and all these other schools, but when and why did American people accept it? Right? Like why did we allow these people to put this blight in our cities, and we just sat back and let it do it over and over and over again? And I think we still do not want to get to the ultimate end of the timeline, or at least to the present, where there's starting to be a revival of being aware of this. But how do we go for so long just allowing people to do this to our natural landscape?
Well, I think in part, various titans of industry or political leaders, they wanted to be seen as progressive. This is a new technological society. This is the post-world world. We don't build like our ancestors. We don't do any of that, bourgeois stuff. In fact, I would say some of them, or many people did have an aversion to the new modernist architecture, but they were afraid to speak up. They might have intuitions about why they don't like that they don't like these buildings, but they had a hard time articulating them. So yes, there was this widespread movement to overturn the past, to build in a new style. It was a kind of self-conscious modernity. But what people fail to realize is that you can be quote unquote modern while still building beautiful, while still respecting the past and building in historical styles. So it is a sad story, since many of the architects, if you listen to them, openly disdained beauty. So for instance, there's a notorious brutalist city hall in Boston built in the 1960s. When a leading architect, Philip Johnson, saw it, he said, "I love it, it's so ugly." So it's not as if necessarily there is a debate about, are these buildings beautiful or not? But in some cases, the question is, what criteria actually matter in our architecture? Does it matter whether something is beautiful, or are there other criteria that we should be using? The strikingness of the form, the honesty of the materials, the functionalist design. And modernist architects so often prefer those other criteria as opposed to what they consider to be old-fashioned and bourgeois, namely beauty.
And it just doesn't make sense to me. I was in DC recently, and you just walk along the mall, and everyone's taking pictures at the Washington Memorial and the Lincoln Monument, or vice versa. Everyone's taking pictures there. Everyone's taking pictures at the Capitol building. Everyone's taking pictures at the Natural History Museum. No one's taking pictures out front of the African American History Museum. It's blight. It's right next to our Washington Monument. It's blight. Like, will these things ever be torn down? Can we start fresh, or are we stuck with this stuff for a long time?
Oh, well, the brutalist FBI building is going to definitely be torn down. That building was completed in the 1970s. It's an austere concrete pile. I like to call it the Ministry of Fear. When it opened, J. Edgar Hoover said it was like something from Mars. And these mid-century buildings are aging so badly that if you do the cost estimate, it can be cheaper to tear them down and rebuild. Another important building that I hope is on the chopping block is the Department of Energy headquarters. It's called the Forrestal Building, just south of the Smithsonian Castle, from the National Mall, if you can picture that. It's this 20-acre behemoth super block of a building, extremely ugly. Nobody likes it, and it is blocking the National Mall from the southwest area of the city, just completely cutting it off symbolically. And I'm hoping that building will be torn down during this administration, and it could be the site, for instance, of 2 new Smithsonian museums that are on the way. Instead of cramming them onto the National Mall, and removing that building could free up the entire development of the Southwest.
What new Smithsonian museums do they want to open?
The Smithsonian is going to be built a women's history museum and a museum of the American Latino. So those museums are definitely happening. The Smithsonian has said they want to put them on the mall. One of them as close to the Washington Monument as the African American Museum is, and the other
Oh,
museum
wow.
on the tidal basin. Both of these museums on those sites would just demolish important public space, block sight lines, and
Yes.
really the National Mall should be considered a completed work of art. And if we
Hmm.
start developing the National Mall southward from the Smithsonian Castle, it could free up tons of space for new monuments and memorials, for new mixed use buildings. I mean, there are very few federal workers in these buildings. And another notorious building in that neighborhood is the headquarters of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. Um, Three different HUD secretaries have said that building is like 10 floors of basement, both Democrats and Republicans. And the current HUD secretary recently said that the agency is going to be moving from the building. So there is an incredible opportunity also to tear down another ugly behemoth brutalist building that's
That's
really
great. I
hindering
love it.
Washington's
Um,
development.
we got to go. We got to go here now. I want to talk to you on my radio show another day about what we should do with the new football stadium that they want to build. I've seen the modern renderings of what they potentially could build there, and it'd be another massive piece of blight and a missed opportunity for something truly beautiful in a wonderful way. But let me just wrap up with this. Again, why does this all matter? And the other question is, what can people do in their local community? If they don't live in D.C., I'm glad you're doing all this great work on our nation's capital, and we should. But what can people do on a local level in this effort?
Well, first, I mean, beauty matters not just for everyday buildings, but especially for our civic and public buildings, since these buildings ought to reflect who we are and who we wish to be. They are the embodiment of our values. But across the country, people need to show up at, zoning board meetings, historic preservation meetings, to advocate to local governments that they build beautifully and are not afraid to build in traditional styles. People have to be confident in their intuitions about their buildings and don't be intimidated
Mm.
by the architects.
That's great. Be confident of your intuition. That's really good. Justin Shubow, please become a member. Learn more about the National Civic Art Society. Justin, keep up the wonderful work. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.